Hello, everyone. I want to go ahead and welcome to the Strategies to Optimize Relationship with Film Commissions workshop. This is a workshop that focuses on the ideal strategies for indie filmmakers to optimize opportunities and resources available at film commissions. I would like to introduce our instructor for today, Johntrae Williams. And Johntrae Williams is the founder and executive director of the Central Pennsylvania Film Commission, which oversees entertainment industry partnerships while branding Central PAs as a hub for an in-demand creative talent and a resource for the film industry. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's get it. Yeah. We also have our special guest zooming in. We have Clarence Rolle. Clarence obtained degrees in mass media and journalism from the University of the Bahamas and Clark Atlanta University. He later worked as a journalist in the Bahamas and the United States, but now serves as commissioner of the Bahamas Film Commission. He has written stage plays, multi-talented over here, and 2 feature films that premiered in the Bahamas. He also serves as a vice president of the Bahamas Olympic Committee. All right, give it up for Clarence. Yes. Without further ado, here is Johntrae.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And as she stated, I'm Johntrae Williams, and I am the executive director of the Central Pennsylvania Film Commissioner. And what I get a lot of times is like, wow, that's amazing. What's that? So, and oddly enough, there's a lot of people in the film industry that do a lot of work in film and production and either don't know what a film commission is or does, or hasn't utilized a film commission for their projects or as a resource. And one of the things that I understood about a film commission is that the film commission is the best way that I can put it. It's like the AAA that you would utilize if you were going to take a trip somewhere that you had never been. If you were going to go across the world, you've never been to a place, and you wanted to, you're going to China and you're afraid because I don't know the first thing about anything. You would contact maybe a travel agent or a AAA or something like that would help navigate your trip, to help facilitate all the ins and the outs. And that's pretty much what a film commission does. It's the concierge to film production. When film production comes into an area, a lot of times, and doesn't know where to go. So I am from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the capital city of Pennsylvania. And it used to be in the 90s, it was like Harrisburg couldn't miss in terms of film production coming into the area. And we had projects like Major League 2, Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy, Girl Interrupted with Angelina Jolie, Winona Ryder. And we were kind of on this kick where, again, nobody could tell the region anything. And then the last project to come into Harrisburg was a project called Lucky Numbers, the year 2000. And then nothing. And no one really understood why that was. And probably also in the year 2000, I left Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I moved to Philadelphia. I was in school studying to become an actor. And when I went to a school called University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and when I finished, I tried the whole agent thing, and I got an agent that was actually in New York and demanded that I move to New York if I was going to have them as an agent. I couldn't afford to move to New York at the time. So I moved back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. When I moved back to Harrisburg, I started producing as a way to just do my own projects. And fortunately, I couldn't even tell anyone else how to do this because it was just fate. It was fortune. I was producing a short film project, and a friend of mine at the time, Michael K. Williams, who was playing on a show called The Wire, and he found out that I was, oh yeah, he found out that I was producing a short film, and long story short, he asked me to be a part of it, and I thought he was joking. And he said, no, I really want to be a part of it. So we wrote him in because we had no part for Michael K. Williams. And we wrote him in, and then he took the project when we were finished, and he said, this is a really good project. You should take this project to Los Angeles. Now, I just want to tell you, this project was a guerrilla. You know, anything that we could do to get the shots off is pretty much what we did. You know, it was, 5 guys in a camera, you know. So you learn all this, you learn filmmaking, you learn production in school, you learn these things. And what really kind of shifted my dynamic was 2 things. I have a brother who's a working actor as well. I would go with him and watch him on set for anything from Third Watch, NYPD Blue, New York Undercover, things like that. I would just watch him and I would see all the set. And he's the one that first taught me about etiquette. That don't do that. Let them eat first, or whatever it was. Don't sit in that chair. And then Michael K. Williams kind of reinforced that on The Wire when I would go to him. But I saw things a little bit more elevated because he was the key character on the show. So I just saw the way like wardrobe would carry out this special coat. And I was like, wow, they're really paying close attention to that coat. And then it started to click for me. That's a job. And then there would be all these other aspects and all these other people around. And I just noticed that there were so many jobs and so many opportunities. Mike, when we were finished with the project, finally invited me to Los Angeles to live with him. I lived with him for about a month and I decided to move to Los Angeles. Of course, as soon as I moved there, he moved back East Coast and started working on The Wire. But I stayed in Los Angeles for about 5 years, worked on various projects and seen the studio side. Working or being involved with The Wire and some of the practical on-set New York experiences was very like practical on set. When I went to Los Angeles, it was very studio dynamic. And I started to develop a strong passion for the industry as a whole because I started to get a lot of friends who were adjacent to the film industry. You know, they would do things like, I had a roommate that was a DVD tester. He would just test DVDs to make sure that they work right before they went into distribution. Another friend was a video game tester and dog walkers and nannies and things, just people that weren't directly a part of the industry, but they were very much a part of the industry. And I remember going to the movie theaters on Sunset Boulevard. It was a theater called the ArcLight at the time. And when, yeah. And at the end of the movie, in a full theater, the credits rolled and all these people started to clap. And every time, every new series of things, people are like, woo, woo, you know, almost like they were watching the play. And it resonated with me. Oh yeah, the industry is here. And then I started to learn about a thing called tax credits. And what it was that I started to understand 2 things, that people were actually, during the time that I left to live in Los Angeles, people were leaving. And Atlanta was growing as a hub for film production. And it wasn't just Atlanta, Chicago, North Carolina. And I'm like, why are people leaving? And it was a thing called tax credits. And tax credits are what these different states offer production in order to incentivize them to come into their region, and they'll give them money back. They'll give them a return on their investment on their project, ranging from, could be 20%. It's kind of like, there's people that do lower, but you're not even in the game if you do that. 25%, 30%. New York here does 30%. And then if you go upstate New York, you can get 40% in New York. Now this is competitive. Now New York just did that. It wasn't always like that. But this made the states compete in order to get people's business to come into their state. So what I saw was in about 2007, Pennsylvania had introduced tax credits into Pennsylvania. And I started to notice this thing like, wow, projects are going into Pennsylvania, taking advantage of the tax credit, but they're going to Philly and they're going to Pittsburgh. And at first, I thought it was just because they were Philly and Pittsburgh. And it was almost like imposter syndrome that I found out really everyone outside of Philly and Pittsburgh thought, oh, no one wants to come here to shoot. No one wants to come here to film. And really what it was is that Philly and Pittsburgh have been in the game with film offices for so long that they are entrenched into the industry. Those film commissioners, they know everybody on a first name basis, and they're constantly out there marketing Philly and Pittsburgh. And Philly and Pittsburgh as cities don't do too bad marketing themselves either. Football, baseball, basketball. If there's a movie, they're naming Philly, they're naming Pittsburgh. So those kind of things are marketing those cities, and it makes people come. So when I saw that there was no one marketing Harrisburg region, now Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the state capital, we have the state capital, which would have doubled for distinguished gentlemen. They were pretending like Harrisburg was Washington, D.C. So our downtown Capitol complex mirrors that of Washington, D.C. They came to Harrisburg to do it cheaper. Well, the problem why no one had come since the year 2000 is people thought that people were only going into areas because of the locations. So people were like, man, you know, we have this beautiful river, we have these mountains, we have this great Capitol complex. Why isn't anyone coming? And the key indicator was no one was marketing that. So what I did was I saw that, and I also saw an opportunity. I saw an opportunity to establish a film commission. But if I was going to do that from ground zero, the next opportunity that I saw, that I realized in the industry just from being around, is that when you go behind the camera, I don't care if you're watching Wakanda Forever, when you go behind the camera, the diversity aspect is abysmal. You know, there's not many people of color that do anything, and especially when it comes to procurement. You know, if you do see people behind the camera, the things that they're buying, like where are you getting your wardrobe from? Where are you getting anything that you're purchasing for the project? It's not a lot of BIPOC people in those spaces. So we wanted to do something about that. So actually the way that we formed our film commission is we actually formed a 501c3 called FACTS. That's the Film, Arts, Culture, Tourism Specialist. Film, Arts, Culture, Tourism Specialist. And we call it FACTS. And we did that because that key mission is to build sustainable arts programming for chronically under-resourced communities. So the whole key goal is to bridge opportunities into the industry. That's an easy thing to do or say you want to do, but you got to bring the industry to you if you want to do that. If you want to build a bridge, there's got to be something on the other side. So we knew that the Film Commission was going to be the thing that invited projects in so that the opportunities could take place. Because even schools as big as Penn State, decent film program, right? When their seniors are done, they're marketing New York and Los Angeles to send them away. So we got this, one of the biggest state schools in Pennsylvania, marketing to send people outside of the state. It was a sin to me. And especially since Penn State is in our region. So what we did was we decided to cover central Pennsylvania, which covers things like Harrisburg, Hershey, Lancaster, York, Carlisle, and even Gettysburg. So all these historic places that has all this infrastructure that no one was kind of watching over. So when we built the film commission and we got several municipalities on board with what it was that we were doing, we had to start driving projects to come into our area. And actually, part of how I met Clarence. There's an industry, really accreditation and programming called AFCI, Association of Film Commissioners International. When I found out about that, I found out it was a way that we could get accredited as a film commission so that people could respect the fact that we understood what we were doing. I also started meeting film commissioners from all across the world, like Clarence, who's from the Bahamas. And I would just ask them question after question after question. And I remember meeting film commissioners from New York, not even just the city, but upstate and Buffalo. And everybody was different. Everybody's challenges, everybody's problems was different. But everybody was trying to do the same thing, invite film into the region because they knew that it would have an economic impact. And they knew that there were jobs and opportunities in the region. So the biggest thing that I wanted to do in terms of laying the foundation of what a film commission is and what it does, the impact that it has, I'm telling you, there are people that I could never talk to as a producer. When I was just producing projects, I have a hard time getting a hold of people. As a film commission, as a film commissioner, it's kind of like the Achilles heels to even executive producers, to studios. They need film commissions. They realize they need film commissions. So what I want other filmmakers to understand is that if you've got these big studios who understand that they need film commissions in order to exist, because film commissions are going to save them money. They're going to point them in direction. They're going to save them time. They're going to help connect resources in the area. If they understand it, then independent filmmakers and people who strive to be in the film industry, make their own projects, should pretty much understand the same thing and say, well, why are they contacting film commissions? What do they get out of it? How does it help them? And maybe how could it potentially help my project that I'm working on? So I'm gonna see if I can share my screen here. 1 second. Hopefully it doesn't give me a. Is it showing? Which one? This one? Yes. It's back here. It's all right. Okay. I'm trying to find the app. 1 second. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Sorry about that. So just to give an idea about how Pennsylvania is shaped, we cover everywhere where the green dots are on the screen, and Philly and Pittsburgh. Here's Pittsburgh area over here. Here's Philly over here, and we're kind of like in the middle of this territory. And we realized that the workforce and job creation was the biggest reason why they were going to come into a place. So if they're coming into an area, one of the ways that they're going to save money is that they're going to, they want to make sure that there's a strong crew base in their area. They want to bring as less people as possible. If that production company is coming from Los Angeles, they don't want to bring in all of these people from Los Angeles. So they want to come in and make sure that there's a crew infrastructure with all these different jobs that you see to support their project. Second thing they want to make sure is that outside of the direct impact jobs, that the vendorship is going to be strong and that they can have vendor relations. So one thing that we help navigate is we help get them in contact with vendors and negotiate deals and things like that so that they can save money when they come into a place. So if they're building sets, even if they're not, they're still they're going to need lumber. They're going to need a Lowe's. They're going to need that kind of stuff. So we go to Chamber of Commerce and things like that and help negotiate costs so that that keeps it down for the production industry. So Pennsylvania offers a 25% return on the project. Now, and if you shoot in a qualified facility or soundstage, you can get 30%. 30% is equivalent to Georgia. Only problem with Pennsylvania is that they put a cap on that. They give it away until they give out 100 million. Here's the thing, you have to have, in order to get the credit, you have to have up to 70% of your budget first. And you have to be able to prove that. It's called earnest money. So you got 70% of the project in the bank, and then you can get qualified for the tax credit, which is really good because if you're spending, let's say I heard $1 million, or if you're spending $1 million, you can get back $250,000. That's good. And in Pennsylvania, you can use that however you want. It's called a transferable tax credit. It doesn't have to be for your next project, but you have to spend it first. That's the key. Once you spend it, once you get an audit, you can get back 25%.
So what does that mean to spend it? Does that mean hiring people who live in Pennsylvania? Or does that mean buying products from Pennsylvania?
Most of it is going to be, they want to see it's connected to workforce and that you're shooting your project there.
Okay.
But that could be also in post-production. So you have to spend at least 60% of your budget in Pennsylvania. So if you want to shoot another 40 somewhere else, that's fine. Or, you know, maybe it's post-production that puts you over. So if you want to do your anything in post, editing, sound, you want to do that in Pennsylvania, you can do that too. One of the loopholes in Pennsylvania is they want to make sure it's a Pennsylvania-based project. So what everyone does, Netflix included, whoever, they create a Pennsylvania-based LLC. And then once you have that Pennsylvania-based company and you hire, I don't care if you bring someone in from China, they become a Pennsylvania employee for your company. And then the state will get withholding from them. That's one way they get their money. And then they understand that if this project shoots in Pennsylvania, we're giving jobs and we're also going to build tourism. So that's the biggest thing too. So the reason why our film commission is an asset for filmmakers, just kind of covered that. They can save filmmakers a lot of money, and they can be a resource when you're trying to piece together your project. So I want to kind of pause and see if there's any other questions like what you had pertaining to film commissions and tax credits before I get too far, because I know it can be a lot. Go ahead.
Well, this is actually more like locations, like where are the sound stages you are working with in your region?
So we have 2 sound stages in my region, in Lancaster. I just helped qualify another one too. The biggest one is this facility called Rocklidditz. Rocklidditz is on 100 acres. It's a 100-acre campus, and they have multiple sound stages. And on their campus, they have 31 different companies from all across the world. And what it is a company called Claire Brothers that you guys deal with 4Wall? You heard of 4Wall? Oh, they're big here. They bigger than Warner, and the other ones are fair size. But their value proposition was that they invite people like Beyonce, Justin Bieber, Drake, whoever practices their tour in the soundstage before they hit the road. So everything they need, from pyrotechnics to virtual walls to hanging rigs, all that. So they invited the companies that do that, like Tate's a big company, they do that. They do wiring for like Mission Impossible. Atomic builds stages for MTV as well as the Super Bowl. They got everyone who did everything the best and brought them onto the campus. Only problem is we were helping them transition to film. Their stages are always booked because their clients are like Rock Nation and Live Nation. So a real fact, we had Lionsgate want to come in, and they wanted a few weeks, and they were like, we're kind of booked to this time. We got 3 weeks open, and this time they're like, no, right? So what Rocklidditz did, they built a similar campus in Tennessee, and they're sending a lot of music clients there, and that will open up the sound stages for primarily film, so that they're not telling Justin Bieber no the next time he wants to do his tour. Because it's not just Justin, it's everyone, every other part of, I don't know who he's with, Rock Nation or Live Nation, but anyone else who's with them, it's like, it's kind of hard because that's their clients. So that's a big one. The other sound stage is about 10,000 square feet. It's decent. You can build good sets in there. We have a lot of rental houses in our area as well. Good question. Any other questions about? All right. This part, it says get past the emotions. And what I mean by that is typically when a filmmaker is putting together a film, it's like they're Frankenstein. It's like it's their baby. You know, they feel very strongly. They're passionate about it. Maybe they can kind of foresee who it is they can get to work on a project, friends, family member, whoever, and everyone kind of rallies together to do this thing. It's a very emotional thing. And it's not on the trajectory to make money. It's not on the trajectory to be seen. It's not on the trajectory for distribution. And all of that is, you can make a very good project and no one sees it. So what I mean when I say get past the emotions of it is kind of ask yourself early on, what will this project make money? Because a lot of times the biggest advantage you can get from a film commission like ours is when you're adding on investors. Because an investor it's a strong thing for an investor. First of all, you gotta understand your budget. So if you don't know how much your baby is gonna cost to make, if you don't understand the budget, how many days it's gonna take to shoot, you don't know the amount of cast members, all that kind of stuff. If you don't know that, you're still kind of stuck in an emotional place. So you can have a great concept and a great story. You gotta leave that and you gotta go to the logic of it. You gotta be able to break down, first of all, if you can start with how many days, how many scenes do I have? And how many days is it gonna take me to shoot these scenes? How much is each day gonna cost? How many characters do I have? So a lot of times, if you start with a formula, right? Formulas are, I want not that many locations, because if I start with a story, and that story, I got 20 locations. It's a lot of work. It's a lot to do in 20 locations. Can I tell a story in 4, 5 locations? Because the fewer locations, the more you can get done in a day. And then do I need 10 people? Do I need 10 actors? Can I tell a story? Can I find one with an ensemble of maybe 2? Because each actor you introduce, there's a lot of variables. You got personalities, you got chemistry of people working together, you got people showing up on time, not showing up on time, and how much you're gonna pay them. Go ahead.
So has the film commission ever built out the infrastructure that is needed? Because you were saying in Pennsylvania, there was a location that's 108 square feet, and they were doing other projects, and now those projects will be taken elsewhere. What is the possibility of a film commission starting their own studio or subsidizing a studio that is going to bring money into the town? You know, it's like the government puts in money into 80-20 buildings in New York because they're creating opportunities, right? So there's an incentive. Is the government putting money into that? And how do we benefit from the government doing that beyond the tax incentive?
So yeah, the government is, because they understand that it helps build tourism. So.
And so what's an example of a government funded
Oh, you mean, do they?
From building a studio to bring in money to
So
the town?
we're working on that as a film commission.
Wow.
Yeah, we're working on that because, similar to what you said, like if you're the forecast of the industry and what could come based on this, we also wanted to be ahead in that way. So it's great, like we lean on studios like Rock Lidditz, and Triode is another studio, but we want to kind of be able to control the infrastructure. We have workforce development programming that we have. So we're thinking about the whole kit and caboodle and how to tie all that together.
Is that common, or is that unusual that you're doing that?
No, it's not. It's not common.
Oh. Okay.
It's not. I haven't seen.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Now we got some ways to go, but
Are you
it's.
spearheading that?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We understand, and the state does understand the value of tourism when it comes to a project, which is a way that you can position your project. If you, I don't know where everyone is based, but if you're based here in New York and you want to consider taking your project to other places, it could actually help you potentially, depending on what your project is, help you save money by going into other places. And you can position your project and understand that it's going to be an economic booster for the place that you're going into, depending on what it is. We have a project now. I can't say too much about it. I can just say it's a story of Milton Hershey. So Milton Hershey, the state knows, is going to generate tourism. So we actually, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, even though Hershey is right in our jurisdiction, we had to fight for this project. And we had to say, please come into our region. We want you to come here because we know that it's going to create jobs and it's going to create, once the project comes, people will come visit after it's done. So understand that your project is something that will help to kind of bring in other people. So it puts you in a position of strength. So if you kind of don't look at your project as like you're a beggar, asking people for help, and shift your mindset to a position of strength, and you understand that your project is an asset, it kind of puts you in a driver's seat. So I wanted to talk about why you should consider tax credits and incentives. And also, and I think, Clarence, if you want to share in on this part too, I know.
You stop share. But it'll be
Oh, here we go. Okay.
on- There we go.
Yeah, because there are some places, and I'll let Clarence maybe talk about the Bahamas, because sometimes, and let me tell you this, when you think of like foreign places, I remember in order for me to get my certification, I had to get my certification from the Bahamas. And not the Bahamas, I'm sorry, from Bogota, from Colombia. And everything that I did was probably the amount of time that I went from Bogota to Los Angeles for another event was about 2 or 3 months in between each other. And I say that for clarification purposes, that it cost me thousands of dollars more for the same amount of time to go to Los Angeles than it did to go to Bogota. And I'm talking about by the time I ate, hotel stays, my flight, everything. It was just significantly less to go to a foreign territory, which is why a lot of studios are going to foreign territories. They're going to other places like Colombia to save money. I know for a fact. Tyler Perry just did that. So you go to other places because while America is talking about tax credit, which it is an American thing, other territories are saying things like, we don't have union wages. You don't have to, if you have a union, you know, in America, if you have certain, if you have a SAG actor, then everything else is going to be union. Your budget's going up. You can take that same project to another place where they don't have unions, but they have good crew. Budget goes down. Go ahead.
So what does that mean exactly for paying, like budgeting, like thinking about paying for crew I'm always cautious about like paying. So what does that actually mean?
I'll answer a little bit, and then Clarence, I want you to chime in, because I know Bahamas is going to be different than Bogota, just because of.
The question I didn't hear quite well.
What'd you say?
Just repeat the question for me too. I didn't hear it quite well.
Oh.
Like what are the actual the payment, like
She,
when you're a filmmaker or with a project going over to another country, what does the actual fee translation? I guess what I am really saying is I'm what are those line items when you're talking about crew and the ethical mindset of being able to say, I'm going to another country because it's going to be cost effective, but how am I still making sure that I'm paying these people their worth?
so she's speaking from ethics, Clarence. You know, that if she's going to another country, making sure that she's still paying the crew base their worth for what's there, And the reason why I said that your answer may be a little different than somewhere like Colombia be the cost of living in these different places. You know, you can get a video made in Colombia. There's some people that I met that are like, they make it for $200. And you're like, man, $200, I give you $1,000, you know. But to them, for everything that they want to do, it's the cost of living is literally different. It translates, the dollar is different. But you can talk about how that is in Bahamas, Clarence.
Yeah, so the Bahamas will be a bit different, like you said. So the Bahamas, to be clear, doesn't have a cash rebate right now. We had a rebate up until 2008, but now we work in different ways to give the filmmaker some sort of incentive when they come in. I can talk a bit more about that as we go along. But to answer this question directly, the Bahamas is a bit different from a lot of the other countries you will find in this part of the world. The standard of living is pretty high. And so our wages tend to be pretty good as well. And you're looking at the country in the Americas with the third highest gross domestic product. So there's United States that has the first or the highest, and then there's Canada, and then there's us. And that's because of the strength of our economy. That being said, it's still not as expensive for a filmmaker to shoot in the Bahamas in terms of what they're paying crew. I spoke to a producer from Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, and he was pulling his hair out about paying production assistants $200 a day, and I mean that's just not what you're gonna pay here. You might get up to 150 a day, but you're not gonna pay $200 a day for a production assistant, and so we try and make things even out. So I'm saying someone's going to travel here to shoot, and that means that they're going to have expenses for travel. They're going to have expenses for accommodating their cast and crew that they bring along with them. So we have to make sure that there are good crew here so that they don't have to bring all those many people with them. When they come, they're not being gouged with the prices that they pay per day for wages. And in fact, we do have a very, very good crew base here. And many of them have been trained abroad. They've worked in Los Angeles and other places, and they've come back home. And Tyler Perry actually did shoot here as well this year. So he might have shot in Colombia. No, he did another country in the Caribbean, but he ended up shooting here for his latest film. And that's because all these things kind of even out. So we find a lot of ways to make sure that people are well paid here. They also giving good value for the money they get because they're well trained. And it's going to be overall a good deal for the filmmaker because we're going to help them save on customs duties. We won't make sure they don't have to pay any customs duties when they come in, even though this country relies a whole lot on customs duties, and they won't have to pay anything for bringing their labor in. So we waive our immigration work permit fees as well, because normally any non-Bahamian working here would have to pay for a work permit just to work here, and that could get quite expensive. So those are the types of things that we work with them with, and we make sure that they get value for money while we're also getting something to feed into our economy.
Yeah.
So if a person is considering shooting abroad, you should also check in to see the training process that's existing where you're going to know if you'll get the team that you need because people are present on the ground. Is that what you do when you're looking for a film commission to work with as a filmmaker? Are those one of the benchmarks? Or is that me just making that up?
No, you're not. I mean, it's due diligence. What I have noticed though is, and this is one thing that I learned even in growing the film commission, is that in most cases, the film commissioner is going to be honest about what they have versus what they don't have. Because if they're not, you got one chance to kind of mess up before that's your name, and I mean, the industry seems big, but it's very small. Once they say don't go there because of whatever, like you're
Done.
you're done. Yeah. So for that reason, a film commission would tend to be honest about their crew base, the depth of crew, depending on your project. You know, how many people you need? What do you need them to do? I mean, we can get you these shots, can't get you those shots. So who is it that you're gonna have to bring in versus what they might have on the ground? How would you speak to your crew depth there in the Bahamas, Clarence?
Yeah, I always tell people that we can put together up to one full crew. So generally speaking, if there's a big film that's coming here, that's going to take up everyone who's available. So if there are two films of the same size shooting at the same time, probably only one of them is going to be crewed up with local crew, and the other one is going to have to bring a lot more people with them. And that's just the honest truth. Like Johntrae said, you got to be honest with people. I can't convince someone that they're going to come here to the Bahamas, an island, and shoot as if this is Miami. You know, we're not going to do Fast and Furious here. Okay, we don't have cityscapes. Right? If I were to somehow convince someone to do that, like Johntrae said, no one's going to believe anything I say again, because that's not going to be isolated to that particular project. People are connected in this industry. They talk to each other, and everyone will have the view that, hey, the Bahamas Film Commission, they're going to pull the wool over your eyes. So we're going to stay away from that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, another thing to remember is it's not even just paying the people, but the cost of the stay and all your considerations that you might have. Like you said, customs, big deal, flights. Go ahead.
So you earlier said that film commissions know each other,
Mhm.
right? Is there a coalition growing in the Caribbean of Caribbean island film commissions working together so that if you're gonna get like a big crew in Bahamas, you can call, Trinidad, say, who you got? Come on over. We want to make it. Is that what's happening now, or is that something in the works, or has that always been the case?
No, that's not always been the case. We're getting closer to that now. We have an informal group of film commissioners. We haven't had like a formal organization form like you'd have the Association of Film Commissioners International, but we do work together informally, and we often meet up whenever AFCI has some sort of event going on. And so, yeah, that's closer to what we have now. We keep in touch with each other. We find out what are the trends in each other's country, what are we working towards. And it would be no surprise that we have the same kinds of triumphs and challenges. One of those things is, all of us have to depend on the government to make some decisions in some key areas, and that's including incentives. And so we work together on how we're going to move, or what would be the moving arguments that we can use to get these things in place that we know are going to grow our business. And so, yes, the short answer to your question is we do have a network. We know each other, we share information, and it's easy to do that. But a lot of people would just say, okay, if I'm going to go into a country that's not my own, I'm just going to bring someone from my city if it's not available where I'm going, rather than bringing them from another place. But where they are interested in doing that, we can certainly make that happen.
So Conch International Film Festival is about new narratives by people of Caribbean heritage. What is the trend from your perspective of all the projects that are coming your way? Is there an increased trend of artists of Caribbean heritage, not just Bahamian, not just of the Caribbean, but around the world wanting to go to the Caribbean and shoot? Or is it still primarily non-Caribbeans using the Caribbean as a backdrop as opposed to a key character in the story?
Yeah, I would say at the moment, there's still a small number of Caribbean people who are forging ahead with film. And again, there are some common challenges that we have in our various countries. That's probably the reason why we are seeing it not grow as fast as we'd like to. But one of the problems is that the few artists that we have, the great filmmakers, they become really big in their country, and then they feel as though they have to move on to the United States or someplace else. So, for example, we have Kareem Mortimer from the Bahamas, who has been our most prolific filmmaker, and you'll see his work, no, in any territory you can think of. He's sold a film in, and he also right now has a couple shows on Crackle and other platforms. So he about 3 years ago moved to the United States. We have another one by the name of Lovato Stubbs. He's now in Toronto, and so this is something that you see also from other Caribbean countries. But what is encouraging though is those non-Caribbean people who are coming into our countries are going more into the Caribbean culture. And so they're using the environment. They want to tell those stories with the people who live there. They are hiring a whole lot more of local people and keeping non-Caribbean people off the sets and instead deferring to having Caribbean actors, etc., to really play themselves, which is more authentic. And you see the stories really being formed and shaped by the Caribbean environment. So for instance, there's a company called Aristar Pictures that's based in Texas, but over the last 6 years, they've done 3 films in the Bahamas. And they're based around marine life. So there's one called Dolphin Kick, there's Dolphin Island, and then this year they did a movie called Saving Bimini. And it's pretty much far more Bahamians now working on these productions than non-Bahamians.
So do you have a lot of diaspora, Caribbean diaspora people saying, I want to shoot in the Caribbean? Or is it primarily non-Caribbean heritage at all people?
Yeah,
Is there a trend to, because you know, they had One Love in Jamaica, and those were Caribbean diaspora people who were behind that. And also Caribbean people, but there was a strong Caribbean Jamaican diaspora community that was behind that.
Mhm.
So we represent the diaspora.
Right.
Is there a call, like a sense of the diaspora saying, you know what, I want to shoot in the place where my people came from? Do you
Right.
see a trend of that occurring?
Yes, I mean, like I said, it's not as large as I would like to see it. It's not happening as fast, especially for the Bahamas, because our population is so small. You know, when people hear about the Bahamas, they don't realize that we still don't have 500,000 people in the entire country. You know, and so we have a lot of Bahamians who are working in the United States and other countries and coming back to shoot whenever they can. But that number is, you know, it's proportional to our population.
Yeah.
And I was kind of really happy to hear Johntrae talk about Michael K. Williams, who a lot of people don't know his roots are in the Bahamas. You know, he
That's
still
right.
has, still
Oh
has
yeah,
a lot of
big time.
family here. And every chance he got, he was back home here, meeting with family, but not only meeting with family, but working with the arts community, working with filmmakers to make them better. He's done like a lot of commercials for our local cable company and done a lot to help them out above and beyond what they even asked him to do. So we have people like that who people won't connect actually to the Caribbean, but they are Caribbean and they're playing a huge part as well.
Fantastic. That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, no, I guess one thing too, and if I were to ask someone now, if they didn't know where Clarence was and his background, where would you say that he was?
You mean with his virtual background?
With his virtual background, I'm sorry, yeah, with his virtual background, where would you say that is?
I would say a Caribbean island because it's very flat.
Okay.
And some Caribbean islands aren't flat, but we know that the Bahamas is more flat than others. So I would say a Caribbean island because every time I see a beach like that, I say Caribbean in the story.
Anybody else say anything else? You said two?
Like, it would probably be like the main go-to. Like,
Okay. All right, so you got so Bahamas, Jamaica. What'd you say? Grenada, British Virgin Islands, any of those kind of places. Now, keep in mind that those places are all different places. They're all different film commissions. So the way that the industry thinks of it is, who's got the best deal? Because whoever's gonna give me the best deal and I can get it to look like that, that's where I'm gonna go. That's pretty much the bottom line. And our value proposition in Pennsylvania is like, as soon as my route took me through Manhattan to get here. But as soon as I like crossed over into Queens a little bit, I felt very much like Philly. If you would have dropped me off and blindfolded me, it just felt like Philly. Which means if I were to film there, I could fool you. Now I'm not gonna fool you. People don't fool Manhattan. You don't. Well, Canada does. Toronto does. They do it well, but not across the spectrum. But your studios, Warner and Universal, Sony, but they put a lot into mimicking New York in their backlots, and that's so that they can keep people in LA. So the industry as a whole, it is starting to trend after streaming though, like you said, where like Clarence said, the industry is starting to be more intentional about going where the real people are. And that's especially if it's outside of the US. Inside of the US, it's the tax credit. You got something like Kevin Hart was a producer of his own project, the one with him and Wesley Snipes. Netflix, The Brothers, took place in Philly. They filmed it in Pittsburgh. Who has the best deal? Pittsburgh, right? Because they can film everything they need to film in Pittsburgh, do pickup shots in Philly, and pretty much fool people, and then save a lot of money by shooting in Pittsburgh. So that's what they'll do. Now, while you may, if you feel, now this is the emotional part, if you feel emotional about your hometown and you have to film in it, just consider the financial aspect of that. Maybe because it's your hometown, you got a strong crew base there. It's good. Maybe some things might cost you a lot. I think did New York just get rid of like permits?
No, that's news to me.
Oh, okay.
Got rid of permits.
Well,
They make a lot of money from permits.
well, what I mean is it used to be pretty strenuous. So one thing that they did, because they have to compete, because they raised the cap to 750 million, and then they raised the percentage from 30 in Manhattan to 40 outside. They understand that they need to compete, and I want to say another thing they did, like if you come to Pennsylvania and you're filming outside, if you're not shutting down a street, you're good, unless you're in like a state park or something you shouldn't be filming. But outside of that, like, you're okay. They don't overemphasize the permit if you don't need police and fire, and you're not shutting down the street, and you're not interrupting businesses. That's attractive to come and film too. I get calls all the time, and a lot of times for me, it's just navigating the email, bringing somebody here from UK. They just want to know that they're good. Are they good to fly a drone? Are they good to shoot in certain places? And they're like, that's good. So from a filmmaker's perspective, maybe just thinking about where your project can be, and if it takes place in a certain area, do you really have to film in that area? And trying to kind of navigating and see other places that may help give you a bang for your buck. Like I said, they were pretending that, I don't want to say pretending, they were doubling Washington, DC. They were using Harrisburg to double as DC. And frankly, that area can do anything, I'll say, outside of desert, and I wouldn't say New York. Now beach, I would give a shout out to Erie, Pennsylvania, who can do beach. Because if somebody wanted to film in the beach and still get a Pennsylvania tax credit, they could still come to PA and then go to Erie, film the beach, and then they can get other stuff that they need to get. So one thing that's good, like it took me, I don't know how long, I remember saying 13 miles and maybe it was maybe an hour or something like that here. I don't know.
It takes a while to drive, yeah.
You're gonna see a lot in Pennsylvania. You're gonna go from urban to suburban to a farm and back again within that time. So that's strong because the production company can set up base camp and they got a lot of different looks that they can have within their proximity. That's a strong value proposition for us, so people can get around. So
Yeah, it's interesting, Johntrae, that you mentioned this background here. This is an island in the Bahamas called Andros. And in 2019, this was supposed to be the location for a scene from Luc Besson, who was shooting a film called Anna. And eventually it was not used. And eventually they used someplace in St. Martin because Besson's dates changed. But this is so off the beaten path. All right. The only way that the location manager found this is because he spoke to the film commission. Okay. Like in the film commission, he described what he wanted, and we said, it's on this island. You can go there. And so you really have a great friend in the film commission because they keep in their back of the mind all sorts of locations that would be obscure to the other person. And if you ask the question, you never know what you're going to come back with. And this could be 30 different Caribbean countries. And for the film, it actually was supposed to double for Bali. So we're a great resource in that sense as well.
yeah, and that's another thing is you want to definitely one of the probably the biggest assets outside of the film, the tax credit, is the location aspect. Because has anyone here ever gone location scouting?
Yeah.
It's like me, it's just not my favorite thing to do. I probably shouldn't even say that as a film commissioner, but just it's very tedious, you know, and sometimes like when you're looking at it, you're not just looking at the beauty, you're trying to think of other factors too. How far it is away from certain things, like if you're going to need G&E or grip and electric, you know, if you're going to have trucks, you know, what roads are they going to travel down? It's a lot of different logistics that have to be considered that the film commission can help save you time. And you can ask a lot of questions to whereas you can arrange a tech scout or a scout visit for the person to come and almost allow them to be a tour guide if it comes down to it, if you have certain questions. But Google Maps is sometimes strong too. But if I think, Clarence, you guys have a database for your locations?
Yeah, so another thing, most film commissions have a website, and you can learn a whole lot and check all the frequently asked questions there. For us, we keep a production guide on there, so you can find people who offer all kinds of services from in front of the camera, behind the camera, all their contacts. You can go to them directly, or you can ask the film commission for recommendations on them. We also keep our locations on our website, bahamasfilm.com. And, you know, it's no mystery. You mentioned how Harrisburg can double for Washington, DC, and that is great to know because though you know your selling point. So with our film commission, we were always known for our water. So that's our biggest selling point for people who want a beach scene or want really gorgeous water scenes. That's what we offer. In fact, the very first underwater film ever shot anywhere in 1914 was shot in the Bahamas because you have the clearest waters in the world. All right. So if you look over our history, everything from Thunderball all the way back in 1965 to After the Sunset with Pierce Brosnan into the Blue with Paul Walker. It's just beaches, beaches, water, water, Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean, all of that. So it's knowing your locations and doing your checks beforehand, and that's easy to do with a website.
Oh,
So
go on.
is there a budget minimum that a filmmaker has to come in with before they get your attention and your services? Because I know there are tax incentives that you're offering, so you're trying to increase the economic health of your area. But then our film festival focuses on Indian student filmmakers. Is talking to a film commission something that they need to consider now, or do they have to wait till they have enough to get your interest?
Me, no. I talk to moms that have kids in school. I talk to students who are trying to do something. The way that I look at it is it's kind of like planting the seeds now. You know, I'm not going to say that we won't get to a point where maybe I won't be as accessible because things just picked up, whatever. But I do try to answer those calls. We definitely answer emails. We got a good team that can respond back to that. But it's not just the big studios who are coming in and asking questions because our whole big thing is career pathways and pipeline. So we want those students, we want those student projects to be successful. We want them to understand, you know, so that relationship building is good to us. And everyone doesn't have to be trying to get a tax credit either. Doesn't have to be a big union project. That's for us. I don't know about you, Clarence.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. We speak to any and everyone. Any film commission that doesn't speak to anyone who's interested, they're being very short-sighted, and probably borderline. They're probably bad people too. But you gotta look at it this way. Like Johntrae said, you never know where someone will be in a few years. They may do a small project today, but later on, they could be in charge of a physical production at a studio, or they could be, the biggest director in the world. You never know. In addition to that, I mean, we're here to help, no matter what size. And certainly for the Bahamas, we do all sorts of projects. We do feature films, made for TV films, episodic TV. We do still shoots for, little magazines and all of that sort of stuff. So we're helping everyone. And I talked to you earlier about Aristar Pictures. They're not a huge production. When they first came to us in 2018 and say, "Oh, we want to shoot this little movie called Dolphin Kick," we could have ignored them. And they probably had about $1 million to spend. But they did it, and since then they've done two more, and each time the budget has grown. And so it's about relationships. We have another film called Roman that shot here in April. Is going to be released next year. It's a small company out of Quebec called All Around Sound. And I have no doubt that they're going to do more and more because their experience here was wonderful. And they're going to these communities that are small in themselves. So a production company comes down and spends $200,000 to a community with 300 people or less than 1,000 people. That's huge. And so you're not going to be doing yourself any favors, and you're not going to be doing the communities that you're supposed to be helping economically any favors if you shut people down.
Thank you.
Yeah, and another thing is these production companies, when they're going into other places, they understand when they're going into something. So we understood we don't have to try to pretend to be Philly or Pittsburgh because Harrisburg it has a quaint feel to it, like a unapologetic bed and breakfast aspect. sometimes people want to visit a bed and breakfast, or the cool thing is that they can navigate things faster. They can get to people who are really excited about what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. It's just different, and it's okay. It's okay to be different. I wanted to ask you, Clarence, I wanted to ask a question. If you knew of any projects that you might have lost out to in the States, where maybe they were pretending to be Bahamas, but they were in like maybe Florida or Hawaii or somewhere like that.
All right, so there are a lot of things that come to mind here. So I'm going to try and stick strictly to the question. I'll start with not just the States. So
Okay.
as I said, with the background that I'm using now, there are many islands that you can be on and you can say you're on a different island. And we found that to be the case with Netflix has a show called Outer Banks. And in the show, I think they're going to be on season 4 now. They say they're in the Bahamas, but they're really in Barbados. And it's a point of irritation for every Bahamian I meet. When they find out in the film business, they say, how could you let this happen? That's not the Bahamas. We don't look anything like that. We don't talk like that. So, I was like, first of all, it's not my fault. But secondly, you got to think about the second part of things. Yes, I found out through my contacts at Netflix and the production company that shoots Outer Bank that they actually never intended to come to the Bahamas. They never tried to look into coming to the Bahamas, even though we reached out to them. Maybe learned that the script was going to be saying that they were in the Bahamas. But because of a previous relationship they had, and the producer who's in charge of the show actually has property in Barbados, it had always planned to shoot in Barbados. But there's a second part to what we do. So the first part is we want to be in this business so that money comes into our communities. But after that, when a television show or film is displayed for the public, we also have this promotional aspect, right? And so people are hearing Bahamas, 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 and forget for the time being that it's not actually the Bahamas they're seeing. They're curious. And so you're getting a promotional value. You're getting advertisement that you had no sort of payment for. You didn't have to make any payment to anybody. People just get familiar with your name and they get curious about coming to the Bahamas. And so for that particular show, Barbados got the direct money spent and the Bahamas got promotion. And then I had a second example. Yeah, so right now on Apple TV, there's a show called Bad Monkey. And it is, for all intents and purposes, shot in Florida. But it's supposed to be taking place in the Bahamas. And so they have come down, and they probably will continue to come down every once in a while and get this B-roll and these exterior shots.
Right.
And but really they spend the bulk of the production budget. I mean, most of the production budget in Florida. And so these are some of the realities of the business. It's illusion. It's making people go someplace in their mind that that the director and the producer are just expert at causing you to come into a fantasy land. And so they can make you believe with footage that you're in one place when you're not. And again, there's a whole lot being said out there about Bahamas, but there's a key in Florida that's getting the direct spend and we get the promotion. So sometimes you only get a part of the equation and you have to deal with what you can deal with. What you can change, you change. What you can't change, you have no control of. You just have to live with it, and do the best you can with the cards that you've been dealt.
Yeah, and it would be unpopular opinion for me to tell filmmakers to do that intentionally, because I know it's annoying. But I wanted to, we have a few minutes left. And I wanted to be able to go to any questions in the audience that you guys might have had based on what you heard. Could be for me, could be for Clarence, if you had any questions or comments. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. So Claire, I don't know if you could hear, she was saying she could see the ups and downs of doubling a space or a community where you're really pouring money into one community, but you're saying you're in another space, ups and downs. A big one for Pennsylvania is the office. They say Scranton all the time. They do exactly what Clarence said. They do the B-roll and show just, you know, street signs and all that kind of stuff. But they film in LA, or they did. They filmed in LA. But like Clarence said, Scranton gets that tourism money though, because people still want to go to Scranton. So they might not see it on the front end, but they'll see it on the back end. But because of what you said, that's why we fought really hard to get the Hershey project to film in Hershey and in Lancaster, because they would have saved money going to Pittsburgh, but we helped get them a bigger tax credit that allowed them to come to our area. So now we'll get the money spent into the community and people will visit, so we can get both. But it's a thing, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anybody?
that's
Oh, go ahead, Clarence.
yeah, that's great. I'll stress just one more time the tourism part of things, partly because the Bahamas Film Commission falls under the Ministry of Tourism for the Bahamas. And, you know, when people see these things on screen and when they hear the name, there have been studies that show that it actually translates into tourism. I've been running into so many women in, I say, early 40s of their life. And it always amazes me when they say they're visiting Atlantis because they saw a movie called Holiday in the Sun that had the Olsen twins, Mary, Kate, and Ashley. And I'm like, wow, really? Whole vacation built around that. And in 2015, we had almost about 60 people travel to the Bahamas as a group for the 50th anniversary of Thunderball, James Bond film. And they literally visited 2 islands, New Providence as well as Exuma, to see locations that were filmed as a part of that. And it's just incredible how powerful it is.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a question.
Okay.
So, would you say like the film commissioner equivalent of New York would be like the mayor's office or that, or you know, what is
New York has a film commission, which I don't know, you may know them, Clarence, better, but everyone is structured a little bit different. Whereas like Atlanta, I can use Atlanta for instance. Atlanta's film commission does come directly from the mayor's office, but it could come from economic development, tourism, like Clarence, or the mayor's office. But a lot of times it's directly tied to the municipality somehow. I'm just not exactly sure about New York.
Okay, so I asked that because I didn't really know about like film commission until like my senior year of college from a professor, and not everybody like get those opportunities to know those things straight off the bat. And that's how I like knew what you were talking about, how certain permits and stuff like that are no longer required in New York, because I was told that by my professor. Okay. So essentially my question is, how are you guys making yourself known to like the little guys, like the filmmakers who would love to like have this information? Like, yeah, how are you guys going about that?
So Clarence, she was asking, the question was how we making ourselves known to indie filmmakers, maybe newfound filmmakers who would love to know about opportunities like this.
Right. So we have to be out there wherever filmmakers are. So the job of the Film Commission is never to sit at home. I had a boss, whenever he saw me in Nassau, he would say, "What are you doing here? You should be out there in some part of the world meeting people." And so that's what we do. We go to film festivals, we go to industry trade shows, wherever someone is who's looking for a location, we want to be there to speak with them. And so like this year I've been to about 5 film festivals and trade shows, and in November I'm going again to American Film Market. So if you're in Las Vegas for American Film Market, hopefully we'll get to meet. And then I try and keep on our website. We have direct numbers. You don't have to have some AI speak to you or email on just a general email, but my email is there, crolle@bahamas.com. People, my direct number is there. People call me all the time. And so if you want to go to bahamasfilm.com, that's a first point of contact for us, and all of my contacts are there. And hopefully we'll meet up at some point.
Yeah, same for us. Like even I was excited about this. I'm always looking to meet people and meet filmmakers. Film festivals are a big way because that's where filmmakers are, like Clarence was saying. But we're real big on that. I'm not going to pinpoint, any other places, but there are places that don't care. As long as they reel in the studios, that's what they care about. That's not us. We care about ground swelling. We care about filmmakers understanding how to, I come from that, and I founded the office. So we really do care. Hence why we would do a masterclass on, on that. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Clarence.